just in general.
And as you're walking along, sort of thinking like a lizard, looking at any places where like the sun comes through and makes a nice like bright spot, or even in some of the leaf litter here would be a good spot for them to go if they weren't necessarily, if the tiles weren't warm enough yet, or if they just hadn't chosen to go under one.
Quickly into their first search, lizards were spotted in their preferred habitat, cracks in the walls.
Dude, where? You're lying. Oh, look at it from here.
Did you get one?
Right there. Oh, that looks this one.
They of course love the crevices between the bricks or any cracks in any walls or foundation. It gives them a nice tight space to feel comfortable, to stay warm, to avoid elements or predators. The more of those places that we can remove on these sites, not only put the lizards a bit more out in the open where we can catch them and move them, but take away places where they could hibernate and overwinter and continue to be successful here.
But that wasn't the only place they were spotted. Researchers found more in the leaf litter along the fence.
When we do catch them, we put them in socks. Like they have air, they don't die. And it's just more comfortable for them so they're not suffocating or anything or squished.
I told you. That was good.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
That was a good plan.
That was a good play.
But it was interesting. He knew where his hole was.
He knew exactly where he was going.
Yeah.
Oh, that one's pretty too.
It's another male.
They got like little checkers almost.
Yeah, they got a nice design.
Don't they? I know, they're really pretty.
It's really alive.
Yeah, he's really alive.
Can I hold it?
No, I don't want to let it go,
They're
but
gonna
put your finger out and watch. And watch. You can get to feel his claws here. Watch. Feel the claws on his toes. Can you feel it?
My bad.
You can just see a heartbeat inside there. There it is. See the little heartbeat?
Yeah.
Doom, 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 doom. Yep. One of the approved methods
Why is
for.
breathing different when he's on his back?
Oh, I think he's stressed. He's probably very stressed out. So he's breathing. Did you want to see him?
I don't be seeing
You gonna run away?
No, I'm not gonna let you hold him. I'll do this, and you can feel his feet grab onto you. I'm gonna hold on to him.
Okay.
Did he jump?
Yes. They jump and they run. All right. Cool. Well, it's been great to have the students involved. It's always fun for them to get to see what's living around them and also expose them to research. Not many high school students get to see that kind of work, so it's been a lot of fun.
I found. Right there. Oh.
It's a nice spot.
Oh yeah, he's pretty. And so, will they bite?
We'll find out.
Nope.
No.
No, it's freaking out.
Oh, you can really see the blues down there. See him on his belly?
Oh, right there.
Jesse,
Right there.
Got him.
All right. That was a big one, wasn't it?
No, this is a small one.
Soon, they almost had more than they could handle.
Unless you think you can grab him.
Did you catch it?
I don't think so.
I chose to work in the district because I grew up in Columbus City Schools. I loved my teachers. I had very compassionate, very caring, very nurturing teachers, and I had a wonderful experience. So therefore, I wanted to give back to the community because I emulate just like the teachers did for me.
I have had an amazing experience as a professional in Columbus City Schools. I had a previous work experience in the business sector, and I also worked for another school district. And I can honestly say that the most professional growth that I've ever gained in my career has been through this district. From my literacy expertise that I was able to accomplish in my time here, that occurred in Columbus City Schools. From the leadership experience and promotion and increasing my knowledge just around leading a team of people, again, occurred in Columbus City Schools.
I've always believed in giving back. I come from a family of teachers on my mom's side and military personnel on my dad's side, so we've always believed in giving back, and Columbus City Schools seemed like the perfect opportunity to give back and kind of help shape the future of the whole city I've been living in. And the city has provided so much for me, so I wanted to provide something back to the city. The most rewarding experience has been able to give our students one-to-one device. Each student in Columbus City Schools has a device today. The pandemic affected us all in different ways. We're still somewhat paying for it. Social emotional issues for us personally, as well as our families and the families we serve. But the most rewarding experience I would say that has come out of it is our ability to provide for our students. We were never a one-to-one district. It was part of my dream for 3 to 5 years. We made it happen in 3 months. The leadership intern at Linden McKinley wrote to me and said, hey, this was like Christmas for some of our students. They've never unwrapped a new present. And that, made me tear up. At the same time, I was like, wow, we are able to make that impact. The team worked very hard to make that impact. And I was like, that is what I wanted to tell.
I feel we impact the students' success because we work with parents and families and students to ensure that any problem, any mediation that we can do to work with the building principal and district leaders to resolve their concerns.
I moved here from India 24 years ago, and I've made it home. I've had 2 children here, raised them here. So many startups. The ecosystem is so rich for technology that I've never had to look for a job, So it is so rich with technology, and it's important for me being in a city like that. And I feel right now in my role, it's especially important for our students because they have tremendous amount of opportunity to go make their careers in technology in the city right now.
For someone considering a career in Columbus City Schools, I would say go for it. This is the best place, and I can honestly say that from the bottom of my heart, to work. Columbus City Schools is a family. You're not going to get a better support system. You're not going to get a better district that's going to encourage your development and really actually provide you the tools to increase your knowledge, to increase your leadership, and to increase your impact.
We are the largest district in the state, so therefore we have more opportunities for educators, and we have a lot more support and a lot more chances for someone, if they want to move up or change careers inside the district, they can.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Erica Wicks here, serving as our chairwoman for today. Happy to kick us off for our October 26th Nsdp meeting. And so calling this meeting to order. Our first item on our agenda is the minutes from our last meeting on September 28th for review. And then also due to not having a quorum, just a simple motion of support from our committee members present. Motion to support.
Yes. So moved.
All right.
A second.
Yep. Thank you. So the September meeting minutes will be approved at a later date. So next is there's no discussion items. So we'll continue forward to our action item for today, which is 4.01, project number 24012. Alex, should I turn it over to you for this action item?
Please.
All right, over to you.
All right, good morning, everybody. So I'm expecting we'll have a pretty brief meeting this morning, although I'm hoping we'll have some discussion about this particular contract. So Ansley from my team is on Zoom, and she'll do the presentation on this particular contract. I'll let her go ahead and lead off and go through her formal presentation, and then we can have any discussion that you think is appropriate.
All right.
Good morning, everybody. Let me share my screen.
Good morning.
As Alex said, this is 4.01, award of general contract to Prodigy Building Solutions for Mifflin High School renovations. We'll go through the proposal, legislation, and our LEDE Form A. This is a renovation project at Mifflin High School. We are going to procure this as a job order contract with Prodigy Building Solutions through their top C unit price contract. The first thing you're seeing here is their proposal. This outlines the scope of work and the cost of all of that scope. It's about a 7-page document. I'm just showing the first sheet here. Generally, the scope includes a full interior renovation of Mifflin High School. So we're very excited about this project. It's going to touch flooring, painting, ceilings, lighting. We'll bring furniture as well. That'll be a separate contract outside of this. We'll replace existing tack boards and chalkboards with new magnetic whiteboards, a full renovation of the auditorium area, a full renovation of the gymnasium area. So kind of anything you see on the interior is going to be touched through this proposal. I'm also showing part of their proposal is also scope drawings. That's what you see here. That calls out in every space what the scope in that space is going to be, just so that we're all on the same page as to what scope we're getting for the price. This is our legislation, and right now we're legislating $11,560,740. This will be a phase 1 of this project. So you'll also see in the legislation that calls that out. We're planning the entire budget of the project at $13,500,000, but we'd like to move forward this phase 1 at that $11.5 million, so that Prodigy can get materials for long lead items and also get most of their labor secured. We're still working through some scope with some stakeholder engagement at the school level, so we want to have time to still do that scope, but not hold up the rest of the project that we're confident about moving forward with. So you should see that phase 2 come through before the end of the year, likely at our next December Nsdp meeting. They are planning to fulfill the 20% LEDE requirement. At this point, they have listed Farber Mechanical, Gantz Expert Modeling, King Business Interiors, JR Roofing, and Undefined Heights Electrical as their LEDE vendors for the project. And that's all I have. Alex, I'll turn it back to you unless there are any questions for me.
Thank you, Ansley. So I'm just going to give some context. So I just looked real quick on my phone because I couldn't remember the exact date. But so Mifflin High School opened in 1976. And this one's maybe particularly painful because the building is actually younger than me. But so the building's about to turn 48 years old. And like it really is a little surprising and shocking when you go into some of our buildings. So clearly it's not the oldest building we have in our fleet. But I'm not sure really anything in that building has changed since the day it opened. If it has, it's very, very little. So just kind of building on what Ansley told you. So I don't know that we necessarily see a huge impact to the building when we replace ceilings, typically. It kind of depends on the condition. But we have a handful of buildings from the 1970s. And Jennifer, you might be familiar with this, or I don't know, maybe even you, Jeff. But so I don't know whose system it was, but this particular building, the entire ceiling system, it's a lay-in ceiling, but it is bigger than 2x4 standard size. It's like a 3x5 tile, which is near impossible to get your hands on at this point. So every time we have to get above ceiling to make any kind of adjustment, pull a new piece of wire, adjust the HVAC system, like every time a tile gets broken, it's a special custom order to get our hands on these tiles. So that leads into the lighting system. So it is a standard 4-foot lamp, but it's a very odd fixture that goes into the ceiling. So the long story short is that it's incredibly difficult to maintain this building and keep it looking good. And so that is why the plan is to replace the entirety of the ceilings. Just like from an ongoing maintenance standpoint, it'll clearly clean the space up. It'll just look more consistent. It also lets us improve the lighting, again, make it much more consistent. Some of the things that we'll still work on with the staff is like so it is a 1970s building built with demountable partitions. We're not going to wholesale replace the partitions, but we are looking to see if there's some opportunities where we can open up the space a little bit, increase some transparency, perhaps some flexibility. I'm trying to think, Ansley, can you think of any other like particular highlights we've talked about how we can improve that space?
I think one of the big areas we've been talking about, I don't know how familiar the committee is with that building, but there's a real opportunity to connect those three larger spaces that are kind of the public facing spaces. It's the auditorium, cafeteria, and gymnasium, which are all right in the same pocket of the school. They were originally built with movable partitions that I believe still operate, just not well because they haven't been replaced since 1970. So we're looking at that area and particularly still talking with stakeholders on how we can improve that area, the flow between those three spaces and the visual connection between those three spaces. Because I think it's a real opportunity to improve not just the visual, but the function of those three spaces. Because it's a fairly small auditorium. I think there's 375 seats, give or take, for a high school that has closer to 800 enrolled. So there's a real opportunity there to help with not just capacity, but like I said, the connection between those three larger spaces.
Yeah, actually, a question that came to mind in the discussion around the lighting. Can you also share around like energy efficiency lighting or any other energy efficient type of improvements for this project?
Yes, you want to go, Alex?
No, perfect. Go for it, Ansley.
I was just going to say all the new lighting will be LED, which will be a lot more efficient than what we have now. The HVAC is also, it's hard to explain, but that ceiling system Alex was describing, the grid is larger to incorporate the supply and return. It's integral to the ceiling system. So we'll also be kind of redoing some of that supply and return, which I hope will help with some of the comfort in those spaces as well.
One other thing I'll throw in, so Ansley, can you confirm, so we're replacing a lot of the exterior glazing, correct?
Yes, all of the exterior glazing. It seems to at some point the seals have gone bad. So although there's glass to the exterior, you can't see through a large portion of the building. It just has a lot of condensation buildup.
And so, I mean, they're going to be pretty modest gains, but I think replacing that glazing and getting those vacuum seals back in place ought to help to some extent with energy efficiency as well. But to circle back, like, so I think this is pretty universal in 1970s construction, but there seemed to be a hyper focus on efficiency, and at least for the time, particularly in terms of space and daylighting. And so this is a building that does not have a lot of windows in it, more than some of the others, but not a ton. But it does make use of a lot of clear story to bring in like natural lighting up high. And so again, to that last point, so we'll be replacing not the windows, so not the frames, but all the glazing within it, so it's all transparent again. And then back to Ansley's point about the common spaces. So I think the enrollment at this building typically is around 800, 850 perhaps. So you heard Ansley say the seating for the auditorium itself is only about 375. So when you look at our older buildings, they typically have an auditorium big enough to seat the entire enrollment. I'm not sure how many people the gym seats, but then you've got the cafeteria space in between. And so the way it was designed, there is an operable wall that opens between each of those spaces and the cafeteria space. So I think the idea was it could serve as overflow, essentially, for either one of them to allow more spectators or to let your guests go out and have some food and beverage and not bring them into the gymnasium. And right now, they really don't operate that way. And so that's one of the things we're looking to improve, is to really make that common space function as a common space. So I don't know that when you're having an actual, like, theatrical performance, you would necessarily open that wall, but certainly for a school assembly, you might open it. But doing that means you also have to have sound out into that cafeteria space so that all can function as one space. So those will be some of the refinements we'll look at for this phase 2.
And so looking at the total construction of 13.5 and the current phase 1 of 11.5, it's about 85% already kind of baked in here in this phase 1. Can you talk real quickly about why there's a need to have the phase 1 done now when we're looking at a phase 2 approval in a couple months?
Yeah, absolutely. Ansley, if you're okay, I'll take the lead on this one, and then I'll maybe let you fill in with some of the scope that you are anticipating maybe might come into play.
Yep.
So we talked about, so certainly on a project of this scale, so it is super important that we start to get equipment ordered, we get materials ordered, we get labor commitments. And so as we kind of talk through, I know it is probably more typical for us here at the district to wait till we're at 100% design before we lock into a construction contract. And frankly, just kind of talking through all the logistics of what it takes to pull off a project of this magnitude, it just simply doesn't make sense for us to take that traditional approach. We really need to work with this vendor to make sure we're locking in all of those orders. If they're seeing any issues with supply chain, that we make changes to make sure we're confident we can get all of our materials on site. But maybe even more importantly, the labor side. I think everybody is seeing the challenges with labor right now, so getting those labor commitments from each of these subcontractors is super critical for us to make sure. I mean, obviously, we want to make the building look and feel different for our students, but we have to be ready for the first day of school.
Right.
And so this is really the tool, the mechanism that we need to use to make sure that we have confidence that as we bring these contracts forward, we can actually execute on them as well.
That makes sense, yeah.
Our contractor is also going to try to do some small investigative work before we get to that phase 2. So we've got a couple opportunities, especially over Wellness Week, where our school was closed for the entire week, but our contracting team is still working for the first half of that week. So they'd like to get into some spaces that are a little more interruptive. They can't do it overnight. They need a few days to get the work done. So working kind of that Friday through that Wednesday to do some investigative work. And then if we need to adjust some scope for phase 2, that's also why we're trying to get this ahead of that full phase 2. So we've got real confidence that we've got everything included in that phase 2.
So Ansley, I'm going to expound on that a little bit just to make sure everybody understands what we're talking about. So I want to make sure everybody has confidence as well. So I've walked it a few times, but Ansley has walked this building many, many times with the contracting team to make sure that we are solid on this scope. But obviously there's only so much we can do when, number one, we don't have a contract in place yet.
Right.
So I'm not asking contractors to punch holes in walls if
Right.
they don't have a contract. There's a lot we can figure out from, number one, the drawings that we do have, because we do have them for this building, and just from a site evaluation, popping our head above the ceilings that we can. But there's some things you can't see.
Right.
And so this also affords us the opportunity, like Ansley just mentioned. So if there are things that our contractor is not confident about, we would absolutely encourage them to cut some holes in walls. They'll need to temporarily patch them, of course. If there's any concern about how we might need to adjust the HVAC systems, how we're going to access power, water, I can't remember. I think there might be a few places here where we've had some questions, concerns, especially around the arts. Like obviously, if you're doing any kind of artwork, music work, like having access to water, either for cleaning or is super important. So there's a few refinements we're looking to kind of work into the plan too. But obviously, you've got to have access to drains and supply lines to be able to make that work. So I think there's a real opportunity with this phased approach to make sure that we give this contractor the opportunity to make sure they truly understand what's going on in that building, so we are really solid on that phase 2 as well.
And
just
go ahead, Erica.
And just to confirm, they'll be doing their investigative uncoverings during November, during the wellness break, right?
Yeah, so certainly potentially there's the opportunity they could do it over evenings and weekends.
Okay.
But Wellness Week, since the district will be closed for that
Right.
entire week of Thanksgiving, is actually the perfect opportunity for them to get in there with really no obstructions, and they can take a little bit of time to make sure they understand that building well.
Okay.
And this whole contract will be performed during the school year, or like the end of the school year before the next school year. So the summer break will take care of all of it.
Yeah, so I'll let Ansley fill in the details. So I think there is the potential. So even at our Hamilton STEM project that we did last summer, some work did get started into the spring. It's pretty modest. If the contractor were to tell us there are things they can do without a lot of disruption, I'm sure we would try to find a way to make that work. But the vast majority of the work will need to happen over summer
Yeah,
break.
that's a lot of coordination, a lot that's going to get done in a short amount of time. Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah.
You got it. And again, all the more reason why I think this phased approach is really the right approach, because we'll be asking people, I'm going to assume, to be either working through weekends, working double shifts. Like I don't expect this is going to be a typical, 7 to 3 work site. Like it is going to take some incredible coordination and some remarkable supervision to make sure these projects are pulled off successfully.
Yeah.
That actually brings me to another question. Were there discussions around work being done over winter break in anticipation of so much happening or projected to happen in the summer? Any opportunities there?
Yes, our contractor will certainly take advantage of all of those breaks. So Wellness Week, winter break, and spring break will have work occurring during all of those breaks. And they are planning on some evening and weekend work still during the school year for things that aren't obtrusive. The building will still be clean and usable every day for school, but they're going to take advantage of every single opportunity we can get before summer to get in and get a head start.
Okay, yep, good.
So it'll get contracted separately, but so I just think it's important, so when we talk about schedule, so within the whole summer schedule as well. So one thing we learned through Hamilton STEM is, so to renovate the building, you really need to empty the building entirely. It doesn't make a lot of sense for us to empty the building and then to bring the old furniture back in.
Right.
So it will, if not entirely, it'll be largely new furniture as well. So that'll be one more element we'll contract separately, but we'll also need to get installed before that first day of school. So yeah, lots of moving parts that will need to get coordinated.
And that's going to be using the same relative scope that we've been talking about the last year. I mean, the new palette, everything, all the aesthetics, the colors, all the things that we've been talking about, it'll be picking from that, whatever.
Yep, you got it. Ansley, do you want to speak to that at all?
Yeah, so I think we briefly talked about it with Hamilton STEM that we had been working to develop a district standard furniture catalog. So all of that furniture that you see at Hamilton was outfitted from that catalog. We've got a few projects actually that we're going to bring to this committee here before spring. We're going to get our orders placed early in the year. So that'll be 4 sites that we're going to do out of that standard catalog, Mifflin High School being one of them. So you'll see the same finishes, same pieces, parts, just arranged in a completely different way, likely from the elementary school to the high school, but same pieces and parts.
Sure. That's great.
It may not be of the biggest significance, but one thing I will point out too, so we are still spending through the last of our ESSER funds that we have available to us. I am not expecting that the contract that we just reviewed will be ESSER funds. It will be district capital dollars that are already committed as part of our FY24 budget, particularly for the board. So we have put both fund codes on the legislation That just gives us some flexibility that if we need to access those funds, we could. But on the flip side, Ansley just mentioned the furniture. So our plan is to renovate one high school as well as one elementary school for next school year. Both will have all new finishes. They'll have all new furniture. The furniture we are expecting to fund through our ESSER funds. We are also going to attempt to completely refurnish. I know it's at least one. Do you remember, Ansley, is it 2 buildings?
2 middle schools, yep.
So we'll be refurnishing a total of 4 buildings. The other 2 buildings won't get additional work. They'll just be new furnishings. But just to kind of cue you up for what you should expect, we'll have quite a bit of legislation for December. So again, maybe out of order here, but remember with our holiday schedule, we will not have an Nsdp in November. We will have one in early December. And then I expect January will be quite busy as well.
Well, I'll put a motion to support if we're.
Yes.
This is a great conversation. Thank you, Alex.
Yes, we are at that moment.
All right.
Motion to support that was provided. Second, thank you. So that takes us through our action item and a great discussion. Thank you, Ansley, for your presentation. We don't look to have any community inclusion report, so I'll turn it back to you, Alex, as we open up the floor to additional attendees in case they may want to provide any comments.
Yeah, we have nothing additional. I see that Board Member Brown is on the Zoom. I would maybe ask if he has any comments he'd like to share today.
Board member.
Thank you, Alex.
Okay. Yep. Good morning.
Good morning to you all, and thank you. This project is exciting. It's going to be obviously a big change for our kids in that building. You know, and I'm happy to see this go forward. I guess it does use most of the rest of our ESSER funds, and you know, gets us back to how we're going to be funding this kind of capital work going forward. But that'll be a discussion for the board for another day. I do want to thank you all for your time and for your efforts in this, and appreciate everything you do for the schools.
If I may, I do have one more thing I want to make sure I point out, and this is maybe a bit of a shout out for Ansley. So while these renovations, in my mind, they sometimes don't feel as impactful as the new construction. Like, we don't get to change as many things. There are some things that are very much the same, and so I think there's something very special about getting to interact with staff, and particularly with students. And so I do want to make sure I point that out. So there have been a number of meetings that Ansley has held to get feedback about the project. And I sat in on one that we did with students, which I always think is a lot of fun, to really understand what our students are thinking, and to just hear what is on their mind, because after all, these projects are for them. And I was even a little shocked. I mean, so obviously our students are progressing through our buildings, but there were a couple of freshmen who were coming from Mifflin Middle School, which, if you remember, we did a big HVAC project there over the summer, and we tried to slide in as many additional enhancements to the building as we could, because it is probably our worst condition building. And I was actually shocked to hear the students. I wouldn't have even guessed they would have gone back to see what we had done, but they had. And so they don't know who we are. No, they don't understand that it's our work, but I was actually pretty touched to hear them talk about what they saw in the building, because they were asking if they could get some of those same things brought into Mifflin High School. And so again, I just think it's really important as part of this work that we engage, and certainly with our students. And so I did want to make that shout out to Ansley for making that effort. So
yes, thank you. Great job. Okay.
That's all we have for today.
All right. So no old business, no new business. So we're at the point to adjourn our meeting today. A motion and a second?
Yep.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.